Welcome to the Explainer. So you're facing one of the biggest decisions for your child in Germany, choosing a secondary school. It can feel, well, a little overwhelming, right? Think of us as your guide today. We're going to give you the map and the compass to find the absolute best path forward for your kid. You know, choosing a school is a lot like picking a hiking trail for your kid. Seriously. If you pick a path that's way too steep, they're just going to get frustrated and want to give up. But if it's too easy, a flat, boring path, they'll be totally bored. What we're really looking for is that sweet spot, right? The trail that's just challenging enough to be exciting and make them proud when they reach the next lookout point. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll start with the timeline, all the key dates you need to know. Then we'll dive into the 3 main school options. We'll also look at how they're all connected. It's more flexible than you might think. And finally, we'll talk about how you can make the best possible choice. Okay, let's kick things off with that timeline. 4th grade is a really big year, and just knowing what's coming up can make a huge difference.
So here are the big moments. It all kicks off in the autumn with teacher consultations. Honestly, this is probably your most valuable meeting all year. Then in January, you've got the open house days, a chance to actually visit the schools. Come early May, the big one arrives. The Übertrittszeugnis. That's the official recommendation from their primary school. And right after that, there's an option for what they call Probeunterricht, or trial lessons, if you're aiming for a school that wasn't recommended. Okay, so you've got this recommendation in hand. Now what? Let's break down the 3 main trails your child can take after primary school here in Germany.
First up is the middle school. The whole philosophy here is about meeting each child where they are. It's all about individual support and giving them a really practical, hands-on orientation for their future. And this quote from a school director just says it all. We take the child as they are. It's not about forcing a kid into a rigid system. It's about adapting to the kid with things like smaller classes and great career guidance, making sure every single student has a clear path to a successful diploma. All right, our second path is the Realschule. Now, if you think of the school system as having different roads, the Realschule is like this amazing, versatile bridge. It's perfectly set up to prepare students for both high-skilled apprenticeships and for more academic studies down the line. And this is where things really start to change from what they're used to. Instead of one main teacher for everything, they get subject-specific experts. And starting in 7th grade, they get to choose a specialization, a branch they call it. It could be math and science, business, French, even arts and crafts. It's a fantastic way for them to start digging into what they're really passionate about. And that brings us to our 3rd and final main path, the gymnasium. This is the most direct academic route, and it's definitely the most demanding. We're talking about a 9-year journey that's specifically designed to lead right to the Abitur, which is the golden ticket for getting into a university. The pace here is fast, and the focus is very, very theoretical. So what does a child need to really thrive here? Well, a lot of educators use this analogy of a 3-legged stool. For that stool to be stable, you need all 3 legs. First, the cognitive ability, being able to grasp complex stuff quickly. Second, really strong work habits. They got to be independent and organized. And third, that inner drive, a genuine motivation to learn. If just one of those legs is shaky, the whole thing can get pretty wobbly. But, and this is so important, these 3 paths are not totally separate mountains. It's way better to think of them as a huge, interconnected network of trails. There are junctions and switchbacks and alternative routes that all head toward the same goal. The key to this whole network is something called the Mittlerer Schulabschluss, basically the intermediate school certificate. And here's the thing, you can earn this at any of the 3 school types, usually around 10th grade. It's like the central station of the whole system. From there, all sorts of new tracks open up, whether that's more advanced academic programs or really cool vocational schools. And if you want to see just how flexible this system really is, get this. In a state like Bavaria, over 40% of university students get to university without taking that traditional direct gymnasium path. They start at a Realschule or even a Mittelschule and work their way up. So that old idea that there's only one right way to the top, it's just a myth. The system is built to have multiple entry points. Okay, so we've looked at the timeline, the paths, and how they all connect. Now for the big question. How do you actually use your compass to find the right direction for your child? What are the tools you should really rely on? So let's talk about those trial lessons, the Probeunterricht, for a minute. On paper, when you see the grades they need, you might think, oh, that seems doable. But the reality, it's a multi-day, super high-stress exam, not really lessons. And honestly, a lot of educators will tell you to be really careful here. The pass rate is incredibly low. You really have to ask yourself, is putting my kid through that kind of pressure cooker the best way to start their new school journey? So what's your best guide then? Well, it's actually right in front of you. First, really listen to the fourth grade teacher's assessment. They know your child as a learner better than almost anyone. Second, go to those open house days and get a feel for the schools yourself. But most importantly, just watch your child. How do they learn? Do they love a fast-paced challenge, or do they do better when they have more time to really master something? The question you should always be asking is not, is my child good enough for this school? But rather, is this school the right fit for my child? And that really is the heart of it all. A happy, successful, and fulfilling school experience, it all comes down to finding the right sit. When the demands of the trail match the hiker's ability, they can actually enjoy the journey. And that joy, that's the fuel that powers all their future success. Which brings us right back to where we started our hike. Look, there are so many paths to the summit, and it's totally okay to change course along the way. But as you're making this big decision, just keep this one question in mind. What's more important in the end? Getting to the very highest peak, no matter what it takes, or actually loving the hike?